Well, good morning. How are you guys doing today? Doing well, good to hear. Well, this is part 5 in our teaching series, Your Best Year Ever, and I'm excited about today's message. I think it might be the most helpful one of all so far, and so we're going to jump into that in just a moment. But I don't know about you, but I was in the lobby right before the service, and I heard a couple of guys talking, and I heard that there's a football game tonight. I didn't know that. I thought football was over already. I mean, it was for the Dolphins a long time ago, so I thought the season's, was over. But okay. I know that tonight is the Super Bowl. Truth is that I've been looking forward to the Super Bowl for, quite a while until I found out which two teams are playing, and it's like, okay. I mean, as a pastor, Sundays, I work pretty much only one day a week. I know that's what you think, but anyway, but Sundays are a long day for me. I mean, they are 4 services. And I really don't get a chance to see much or anything at all between the 1 o'clock service. I get home around 3, take a little nap, get up at 5, come in here, mostly awake for the 6 o'clock service when I speak, not always. And then I get home at the earliest at 8, sometimes at 8:30 on Sunday night, and that's when I eat. And so 2 weeks ago, the conference championship game was happening. I knew the result of the earlier game, but the second game between the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs, that game was on, and I turned it on. I'm watching the game. 2 minutes left. The Chiefs are up. I'm excited. Brady throws an interception. I'm going wild, and I'm by myself, but I'm going, yes. And then they threw a flag, and there was a penalty, and a guy lined up in the neutral zone, and they called the interception back. Brady did what Brady always does. He finds a way to win, and the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl, and now I'm just going wild, not in a good way, but in a godly way. So I'm going, oh man. And it was after that I decided to watch the first game, because I saw on social media throughout the day, that there was a controversial call or a non-call, that there was a pass interference, that the Los Angeles Rams, they interfered with the New Orleans Saints receiver, and it cost the Saints the game. And I watch and I go, oh my word, how did that referee not make that call? And now I'm all upset again in a godly way, because I wanted the Saints to win. Because as a pastor, I have to pull for the Saints. It's in my job description, I think. I haven't read it in years, to be honest with you, but I think it's there. So here I go. I'm pulling for 2 teams. 2 weeks ago, I want the Saints to win, and I want the Chiefs to win, and neither one won. And now the Los Angeles Rams are playing against the Patriots, and now, to quote Forrest Gump, and just like that, we're all Rams fans. I love that. Wayne Weekly's here today. Wayne put that one on his face. So I stole that from Wayne. I love that. And so I got to tell you, I've been a huge Rams fan for 2 weeks. Now, everybody's been asking me, because I always find a Bible verse or something related to the Super Bowl game. And so I almost didn't do it, but I decided I wouldn't disappoint you. So here's the thing. I'm not predicting who's going to win. I'm not going to do that. Afraid to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you who, as your pastor, as your spiritual advisor, that you need to cheer for. I give you spiritual direction all the time on so many different things, and the Super Bowl is no different, because the Bible speaks to this. We are a Bible church. If you want to be biblical, here is what you need to do. You need to cheer for the Rams. And here's why. The word ram or rams appears in the Bible 172 times. The word patriots, not even once. Not even once. So are you going to follow the Bible or what? I mean, I'm just telling you, we're a Bible church. Okay. All right. I'm almost done, but not yet. Yeah, I will get feedback about this later, but I'm just going ahead. So anyway, I heard about a huge Rams fan. I mean, this guy was all in. I mean, he loved the Rams. He lived in St. Louis 3 years ago. The St. Louis Rams, they relocated back to L.A. So what did he do? He moved from St. Louis to L.A. so he could go to the games to this Rams fan. And so he and his dog, Rambo, moved to to LA. And when he moved there, he moved into an area where he could paint his house whatever color he wanted, and he painted it the colors of the Rams. And he drives a car that's the color of the Rams. And again, he has a dog named Rambo. And he had a friend that was watching the conference championship game when they were playing against the Saints. And he didn't go to that game because it's in New Orleans, and he's watching the game on TV. And when the Rams, when they kicked a field goal, Rambo just barked and barked and barked and barked. And that's kind of interesting. And then when the Rams, when they scored a touchdown, Rambo barked, but he ran around in circles just celebrating. And then when the Rams won, even though it's controversial, when the Rams won, Rambo barked, he ran around in circles, he started rolling over, he started doing backflips. I mean, he was doing everything. I mean, he was just celebrating this game. And his friend goes, oh my word, if Rambo does that when they win the conference championship game, what does he do when they win the Super Bowl? He goes, I don't know. I've only had him 18 years. Okay, I'm done. The last time the Rams won a Super Bowl was 19 years ago in the year 2000. But I'm pulling for them. I am a believer. Now, you're probably thinking, Scott, what does that have to do with the message? The truth is, not a whole lot. I'm going to try to make it fit. It's not good, but I'm going to do my best here in just a moment. And so today, what we're going to talk about is contentment. And I am very excited about the message, to be honest with you, because I think this is going to be the game changer for some of you. Because this is relatively just a choice. It's just a decision. You don't have to change anything about your environment, your circumstances, anything. You just make this decision that you choose contentment. You can have your best year ever. But if you're a victim of your circumstances and your happiness is based upon your happenings, and when your happenings are up, you're up, and when your happenings are down, you're down, and then, well, you're not going to have your best year ever. So I really believe that this can be your best year ever as we look at contentment. If your contentment is tied to whether your team wins the Super Bowl or not, there's that connection. And then you're probably, most of us aren't going to be very happy. The Dolphins last won a Super Bowl 46 years ago. I need to find my contentment somewhere else. I do. But you can find it. You can choose contentment. We really can. The Apostle Paul is going to give us some amazing words. He's this Christ follower who has this transformational attitude. He said in Philippians 4:4, he said, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let's read that out loud together. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. It's a decision. Rejoice in good times, rejoice in challenging times, rejoice in hard times. Friends, the truth is, with all of the advantages that we have in our culture, with all the privileges that we have in our culture, we probably are one of the most discontent people in the history of the world. We're not very contented. Are you content? If we were to have like a personal contentment exam, and I was to give it to you right now, how high would you score on contentment? Are you content with your job? Are you happy with your job? According to the Princeton Management Association, 82% of the American people say, I hate my work. Wow. They just endure it. They wait for the weekend. They're longing for retirement. Are you content with your marriage? Would you say you're content with your marriage 95% of the time or 80% of the time? Or are you happy more than you're not happy? Or if what you were going to say was going to just completely stay with me, and would you say that, Scott, the truth is I'm kind of more dissatisfied with my marriage than satisfied? Or would you say I'm single and I'm very unhappy with my marital status? Are you content with your body? Can you look at yourself in the mirror and say, God, I thank you for the way that you made me. I am wonderfully made. Or how do you feel when you get on a scale? Sorry for bringing that up. I think that most of us in this room would like to look better than we do. I saw this sign a few years ago. I share it every few years. It's my hope. Being cremated is my last hope for a smoking hot body. I mean, that's it, okay? The older I get, this becomes more and more my hope. It's just true, friends. It's just true. I wanted to be buried, but I got to tell you, I'm seriously reconsidering it now. So now, listen to what the Apostle Paul, he makes this remarkable statement. We're going to look at what Paul says again and again in the book of Philippians. He said in Philippians 4:12, I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Paul says, there's a secret. There's a secret to the satisfied life. There's a secret to contentment. I've learned it. I've found it, and I want to share it with you. And Paul makes this claim when he's this aging prisoner. He's financially destitute. He's physically suffering from a thorn in the flesh that he calls. He's chained to a Roman soldier. He's waiting probable execution. And Paul says, I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. And he's basically saying it's not dependent upon your situation because my situation's not very good, but I can still be content. And Paul uses the word learn there. I have learned through experience. That's what it means. And this is good news for you. It's good news for me that because some of us in this room have more of a bent to being contented people than others. That's just the truth. Some of us have a bent more to worry than others. Some of us, we're just kind of naturally contented people. Others of us, we are naturally discontented. But what does Paul say? You can learn, you can practice, you can become, you can choose contentment. That's why I'm so excited about the message today. Philippians 4:12 says, I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. Would you read that out loud with me? Because this is the game changer for us. Here we go. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. And I hope at the end of the message you can say along with Paul that I've learned the secret. And I'm going to choose joy. I'm going to choose contentment. I think there are very few lessons that we need more than this one. So we're going to look at the things that fuel discontentment in our lives. We're going to try to limit or reduce or restrict those and lean into contentment so that we can, have our best year, our best life ever. I think there are four primary enemies of contentment, and I'm just going to walk through these. The first one is unrealistic expectations. I mean, if we set ourselves up and we have incredibly unrealistic expectations, that just sets us up for discontentment. We have such high expectations that we not only want things, we want things and we want them now. I've heard that there's a craft store in Pennsylvania that has a sign that's posted behind the counter that reads this. It says, antiques made while you wait. We not only want things, but we want them now. We have this itch for the instantaneous. And some of us in this room were raised by parents who were very well-intentioned, but they were overly protective. They were determined that they were going to shield us, protect us from disappointment. They were going to respond to our desires. They're not going to really require a whole lot of struggle for us because they had that and they didn't want that for us. They would run interference for us at school, fight our battles for us. They wanted our lives to be as stress-free, struggle-free, problem-free as possible, and they gave us an unrealistic expectation about life. And maybe we were naive and we expected life to be a whole lot easier than it is, and it was well-intentioned but incredibly misguided because now we have these unrealistic expectations about life, and it might take us 10 or 20 or 30 years or maybe a lifetime to kind of process and get through those. I love what C.S. Lewis said. I quote him often on this point, especially on contentment. He said, disillusionment is the child of illusions. When you have an unrealistic expectation, an illusion, it just sets you up to be disillusioned, to be discontent. You got married. You had high hopes in your marriage, but you discovered that Mr. Right has a first name, Mr. Always Right. Or your wife doesn't seem to be as sweet and kind and supportive and as encouraging as she was when you dated. You went to work with high hopes, but the truth is now you work for a jerk and you just dread going to your workplace. Or you became a follower of Christ and you thought that, that life would be smooth sailing, but now you realize it's anything but. You struggle with temptations. Before you didn't struggle with them because you just kind of gave in to them and you had problems. You thought your problems would go away, but They haven't gone away. And that's why Jesus taught his followers to be realistic about life. Jesus said this in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble. He wanted us to expect trouble, not to be disillusioned when it comes. And see, there is power in positive thinking. I believe that, I really do, and I want to think positively and optimistically, but I also think there's power in realistic thinking. Jesus said, in this world, you will have trouble. So we realize that many days are just going to be hard days. There's something's going to break. Somebody in the family is going to be sick. And when we have a normal day, man, it's just a normal day. Thank God for a normal day, an uneventful day. And then when the trouble days come, we go, okay, that's just the nature of life. And the normal days, we celebrate and we praise God for those. It's just a blessing. Jesus goes on in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Friends, I share this every now and then. This isn't a direct quote from one person. It's a combined quote, so I don't know who to give credit for it. Give me credit. No, it's not mine. But anyway, here it goes. Suffering is inevitable. Misery is optional. Happiness is a choice. Let's say that out loud together because I want this to be ingrained in our mind. I believe this is just truth. Suffering is inevitable. Misery is optional. Happiness is a choice. And the good news is today you can make that choice. A second enemy of contentment is unwise comparisons. We just compare, and this fuels all kinds of discontentment in our lives. In Matthew chapter 20, Jesus told a parable about an owner of a vineyard who went down at dawn to select a group of day laborers to go work in his vineyard, and he agreed that he would pay them a denarius, which was the average working man's wage for the day. But at 9 o'clock, he said, I need some more workers. So he went to the labor pool, and he was short on help, and he brought another group to work the rest of the day. Same thing played out at noon, at 3 p.m. At 5 p.m., with 1 hour left, he even got some laborers to go in this parable, this story that Jesus told. And they went to serve for one day to work, for 1 hour. And he paid all the workers the same amount. Those that started at 6 a.m., those that started at 5 p.m. We know that this story's not going to end well. It's not going to go well. There's going to be some pushback, some frustration on the parts of the workers, and we get that. Matthew 20, verse 10, when those hired earlier came to get their pay, they assumed they would receive more. They're paid less. But they too were paid a day's wage. When they received their pay, they protested. Those people worked only 1 hour, and yet you paid them just as much as you paid us, who worked all day in the scorching heat. How dare you? In other words, he answered one of them, friend, I haven't been unfair. Didn't you agree to work all day for the usual wage, a denarius? Take it and go. I wanted to pay this last worker the same as you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? And here's the key. Or are you envious because I'm generous? Comparison fuels envy. Unfair comparisons always lead to envy. We're not discontented because we have so little. We are discontented because someone else has more. And that's just the truth. If we didn't compare ourselves to anyone else, if it was just us on the planet and we have what we have, we would be so grateful and thankful. But discontentment comes when we compare ourselves to somebody else that has more. Super Bowl Sunday is the only day of the year, I believe, where you will ever hear this said by people in front of a television. Hey, be quiet, the commercials are on. That's the only time we ever say that. And sometimes that's the best part of the game. One of the reasons that we are not content is because the entire strategy of marketing, the entire strategy of commercials is to stimulate discontentment. Here's the truth. We never knew how miserably we live until we watch a commercial that lets us know that. We thought we were doing pretty good. And then we go, oh my word, I've got to have that. That's how good marketing and advertising is. I've got to have that. And we're led to believe that contentment is always just one purchase away. When you fly, depends upon which airline, I think probably most of them have the Sky Mall magazine, and it's that magazine, it's not the individual one for the airline, it's just in general, and it's kind of interesting. Every now and then I'll flip through it. It has the coolest things in there, the coolest inventions, and you're looking at the Sky Mall, and you're going, I never knew this existed, but now I can't live without it. That's how effective that people are in advertising. Theodore Roosevelt wisely said that comparison is the thief of joy. We're always comparing. And here's the thing, I was thinking about this past week. Have you noticed when we do our comparisons, we always compare up? I mean, don't we do that? We compare up? I mean, if we compare down, and please, this is what I'm saying by that. If we compared ourselves to someone who has less, if we compared ourselves to someone who was less fortunate, what would be the result of that? It'd be gratitude. It would be joy. Thank you, God, for how you have blessed me in my life. And that's what happens when you visit somebody in a hospital and you don't have a condition and you walk away just grateful and thankful because you compare yourself to that person who's struggling with maybe something that you don't have, or you work at a community impact day and you come away and you say, I was the one that was blessed, because you compare yourself to someone that has less, someone that's less fortunate. But we don't tend to do that. What do? We try to compare ourselves to someone who's further down the path that we want to go down. Maybe they're on another level that we want to strive for. And here's the thing, there will always be someone who has more. And the feeling when we compare ourselves to someone who has more is always discontentment. Comparison will do that. If you want to have your best year ever, this is the single action step that I could give you, is go on a mission trip this year. I'm serious. We always say, I went thinking that I was going to make a difference, but I came back and the difference was made in me. I was the one that was blessed. Part of that is the perspective change that you'll have when you come across someone maybe that lives in a third world nation and you're going, oh my word, I thought that what I had was so little, but what I have is so very much. And when talking about the enemies of contentment, there's no way that I can now do a message about contentment without talking about social media and Facebook in particular. I've read a number of articles about the correlation between Facebook and depression. One study found that 3 times the incidence of depression among the most active users of Facebook. So many people feel worse after they're on Facebook. Why? Well, the term that is being used is social comparison. We know it just is envy is what it is. Listen to this quote from one of the articles that I read. Scrolling through happy status updates, exciting vacation photos, and beautiful family moments led participants to compare their lives with those of their Facebook friends. Those social comparisons led people to assume their Facebook friends had better lives. And those feelings of envy increased their chances of developing depression. Friends, here, this is so very important. Don't compare your everyday life to everyone else's highlight reel, because that's what Facebook is. It's someone else's highlight reel. It's the good stuff that happens in their life. So in one sense, Facebook is fake book. I mean, in that sense, it is, because that's not totally representative of their life. I mean, and the truth is, I primarily only want to see the highlight reel. I mean, if you have this beautiful meal at this really nice restaurant, you take a pic and put it on Facebook, that's cool. I don't want to see your hot dog that was nuked in a microwave. I mean, I don't want to see the normal. But I know that the normal is normal. And Facebook, all it is, it's the highlight reel. But if you get sucked into that and you think that that's the normal and their life is amazing and your life is so not, well, that'll fuel discontentment. And Facebook becomes fake book for you. So what does that mean? I don't want to talk about it. It may mean that you do a little social media fast, and then you evaluate your emotional state in the midst of that. Are you feeling better? Because you're not comparing yourself. And then maybe you limit. And then on the other side of the fast, you still want to be, because you want to track people. And so what do? Is that maybe you limit your screen time a day. And you never, ever look at social media right before you go to bed, something that triggers that. You have a rough night's sleep, and you don't look at it first thing in the morning when you wake up either. You determine that there are times that you do it. You're intentional. Why? Because you want to guard your emotional health. You want to guard and choose contentment. And there's nothing like comparison that can derail contentment. And one of the greatest fuelers of comparison and discontentment is social media. I'm not opposed to it. I mean, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. I haven't posted anything in 2019 yet. I'm on less. And to be honest with you, that comparison stuff, I mean, I have my issues. If you want to talk to anybody in my family or anybody that I work with, and you'll say, does Scott have issues? They'll say, how much time do you have? So, I mean, they'll say that. But I'll be honest with you, I don't have this one. I mean, I can look at this stuff and I can celebrate 99.9% of the time. That's awesome. I'm excited that you went on this trip. But if this is an issue for you, then you really got to lean into it and address that. Proverbs 14:30, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy, well, it rots the bones. Mark Twain said, few of us can stand prosperity. Another man's, envy. Unwise comparisons will rob you of contentment. Leonard Bernstein was the famous symphony conductor, and he was asked what's the toughest instrument to play in the orchestra. You know what he said? Second fiddle is the toughest one, envy. Paul did not compare himself to other people who were free, who were outside and not deprived, that were just free. He compared himself to Jesus Christ and how he was crucified for him. And he just felt honored to suffer for his name. Unnoticed blessings is a fuel for discontentment. There's a book titled How to Know When You've Got It Made, and a lot of us, we don't know that we've got it made. We really do. I think probably no people in history have ever had more possessions, more freedom, more recreational opportunities than we have. But we don't notice them. Why? Because they're just so common. We consider them as necessities. We just take them for granted. One quick strategy on leaning into contentment is to visualize everything that you have right now, your house, your family, your job, a car, kids, everything that's dear to you, and just imagine that there's some catastrophic event that takes it all away. I mean, you're living a modern day Job. It's all gone. And then visualize what life would be like, the devastation, and how you'd have to live with that for a day or two or three, and then visualize how you would feel if you got it all back, and how joyful and elated you would be and thankful, because that's exactly where you are. I mean, you have all that. And we just need to celebrate all that we have. There's an old hymn, count your blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. I heard about an immigrant shopkeeper whose son complained about the father's business record. This young son, he had just graduated from graduate school. He took the CPA exam, so he's a CPA. So he's really concerned about the financial kind of side of his dad's store, his shop. And he said, Dad, you keep all of your accounts owed in a cigar box, all of your accounts paid on a spindle, all of your cash is just kept in the cash register. You're not keeping accurate records. I don't think you even know whether you made a profit or not. And the dad said, son, when I arrived as an immigrant in America, I owned nothing but the shirt on my back. Now, your sister's an art teacher, your brother's a doctor, you're a CPA. Your mom and I, we own this shop, we own a house, we own a car. So the way I see it is you take all of that and you subtract my shirt, and that's my profit. Isn't that great? Friends, it's just perspective. I completely believe this, that contentment is a choice. And contentment can be the key to you having your best year ever. It's just a choice away. It's interesting that when we finally get what we want, we don't want what we have. It's not enough. Here's a key thought. If you're taking notes, write this one down. If you haven't written anything down yet, that's okay. This is a big idea. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. Gratitude turns whatever we have into enough. That's just truth. And gratitude is the key to contentment. And gratitude is a choice. And let me give you another truth. If I can't be grateful for the good things that I have right now, I'll never be grateful. I believe that to be true. If I can't be grateful for the good things that I have right now, then I'll never be grateful. Some people see Every situation is better than the one they're currently in. Some people are always looking for tomorrow. Some people are looking toward the past. Some people live life in the past lane. I mean, that's just truth. And they glamorize the past. They don't remember that the past was full of difficulties. They only look at the good things that happened in the past. 5 years ago, that was awesome. Truth is, 5 years ago, they were complaining about that year because of all the struggles, but they've forgotten the negative, and they're just focusing on the positive. So rather than glamorize the past, here's a good idea. Let's glamorize the present. Let's focus on the good things. We're going to have a lot of stuff that's going to happen, difficult. That's just life. I mean, kids are going to get sick. Things are going to break. It's just life. But let's glamorize the present. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it. That's what God calls us to do. So we glamorize the present. If you're waiting for something to happen so that you can finally be content, then contentment will never find you. It's not one purchase away. And the last enemy of contentment is just uncontrolled ambitions. Uncontrolled, out of controlled ambitions. Ambition is healthy, I believe, as long as it's under control. Jesus commended a man who was given 5 talents, who doubled that, and he said in Matthew 25:21, well done, good and faithful servant, well done. He was encouraging and commending the ambition. The Apostle Paul said, Colossians 4:5, make the most of every opportunity. Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all of your heart as working for the Lord, not for men. And then in Philippians, this book that we're talking about, Paul, who's chained to a Roman guard, he says, forget what's behind, strain towards what is ahead. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. My point, Paul was no slacker. He's the one that he said that you can be incredibly ambitious and yet lean into the secret of contentment. They're not mutually exclusive. He said that every follower of Jesus ought to be driven to excellence. Again, the Super Bowl is tonight. Elite football players are driven people to excellence, and I think healthy ambition is healthy. 9 years ago, Lori and I went to the Pro Bowl game, which is after the conference championship games. It's the week before the Super Bowl. It was the one time, I think, ever in history that the Pro Bowl game was here in South Florida in Miami. The Super Bowl game was the next Sunday. We didn't go to that game because we had a conflict, and also the tickets were about $2,000, but we went to the Pro Bowl game, because the tickets were, maybe $100. I don't know. But we went, and there was this thing that we walked around, and there's this display that we walked into that had Super Bowl rings, and then this is where I saw this. I took this pic 9 years ago. It's Russ Grimm, a 1984 Washington Redskins, said, I'd run over my own mother to win the Super Bowl. Friends, that is ambition that is absolutely out of control. Hopefully he was joking. I'm thinking about sharing that quote on Mother's Day. I'm not positive yet, but I'm kind of just, planning ahead, thinking about that. So anyway. James 3:16 says, for wherever there is jealousy and selfish ambition, there you'll find disorder and every kind of evil. I get a magazine called Sports Spectrum, and for those of you that have kids or grandkids that like sports, I'd really encourage you to write this down and then chase this down, Sports Spectrum. You may want to get the magazine, but it comes in digital form, and you can get really all the content from this ministry. And it's an amazing ministry because it's a Christian Sports Illustrated. It highlights the stories of faith. Like on the cover, it talks about Case Keenum and Kirk Cousins and Demario Davis and their faith and their story. And it's just this great publication, this great ministry. So it's Sports Spectrum, and just you can track that down. You can sign up for the weekly or emails, and they'll give updates on faith stories, and you can share that. And when Lori and I were very intentional with our boys about celebrating and sharing about the faith of athletes that they respected. Now, here's the thing: the Ministry of Sports Spectrum is putting on a TV show today at 4:30 p.m. It's called Football Sunday, and it's going to feature stories from Christ followers that are on the Los Angeles Rams and on the Patriots, and they're going to share their stories about how they surrender to Jesus, they seek to honor Jesus and to serve Jesus, and it's going to be great. Now, this TV show is on the Hillsong channel. You might not have ever heard that, but it's real possible that you have it. It's on DirecTV, it's on Dish, it's on AT&T and many others, but it's the Hillsong channel. We're making a social media post today at 3:30 p.m., but the show will be on at 4:30 p.m. You may want to copy that and then watch that later. Ambition, under control, can be a godly thing. I mean, it could be a platform that someone can use. And it's awesome when I see an athlete that really is serious about their faith and they use their platform to let their light shine before men to give glory to their Father who is in heaven. And that's what God calls all of us to do. And sometimes for a season, he gives them a larger platform than most. So that's a good thing. Ambition that's out of control, it just robs us of our values. Out of control, we sacrifice family and integrity and sleep and health and friendships, and we just to climb another rung of the ladder to success so that people that don't even care about us, the world, our culture, they will admire us. Jesus said in Luke 12:15, don't be greedy for what you don't have. Real life's not measured by how much we own, and that's just truth. And then he talks about a rich fool, this overly ambitious person who's always saying, I know what I'm going to do next, know what I'm going to do next, know what I'm going to do next. And in Luke 12, Jesus said that this rich fool will say, I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store everything that I make. And then one day, someday, not today, but someday way off in the future, then I'll be able to finally relax. Then I'll be finally happy, but not today. It's all about tomorrow. And I'll just continue to chase and chase and chase. And they're not content. And then Jesus says, in verse 20, but God will say to him, you fool, you will die this very night, and then who will get it all? The man could never say, wow, this has been a great year. Nothing wrong with having a great year. Please don't misunderstand. I want to succeed. I want to do what I believe God's calling me to do. But this man could never say, wow, this is a great year. God's been good. Let's pause and give him thanks. His ambition blinded him to the blessings and created a spirit of discontentment, and it just fueled, the discontentment just fueled his workaholism, which destroyed him. Some of us who are here today, we are like that. No matter what we have, it is never enough. No matter how good today is, we are always focused on tomorrow. No matter how much God has blessed us, we seldom slow down long enough to pause and to thank him. We're restless, we're sleepless, we're fidgety. Even in church, we have a difficult time concentrating and focusing because we're laying blueprints in our minds for bigger barns. Now, I struggle with this, frankly, I do. Sometimes instead of enjoying the moment, I find myself focusing on the next step. Now, that's not altogether bad because I do it, but when you do it, it is a sin. And God wants you to stop. Let's go to the passage. Let's keep moving on, okay? The secret of contentment, Paul said, I've learned to be content, and then it's whatever the circumstances. Not this stoic, whatever. No, it's whatever the circumstances. I'm going to choose contentment, whatever the circumstances. Here's a man who's in prison, he's broke, he's physical impairment. I've learned to be content. And he says, it's not just the right circumstances. If you have to wait until all of your circumstances are up and to the right, and that's the only time you're going to be happy, then, well, good luck with that. There's a secret, and that's not it. I love this. I haven't shared this in years. Robert Hastings wrote this called The Station. He said, tucked away in our subconscious minds is an idyllic vision. We see ourselves on a long, long trip that almost spans the continent. We're traveling by passenger train, and out the windows we drink the passing scene of cars on nearby highways, of children waving at a crossing, of cattle grazing on a distant hillside. But uppermost in our minds is the final destination. On a certain day, at a certain hour, we'll pull into the station. There will be bands playing and flags waving, and once we get there, so many wonderful dreams will come true, and the pieces of our lives will fit together like a completed jigsaw puzzle. How restlessly we pace the aisles, cursing the minutes for loitering, waiting for the station. When we reach the station, that will be it, we cry. Translated, it means, when I'm 18, that'll be it. When I buy a new Mercedes or a Jag, that'll be it. When I put my last kid through college, that'll be it. When I pay off the mortgage, that'll be it. When I get the promotion, that'll be it. When I reach the age of retirement, that will be it. And then I will live happily ever after. However, sooner or later, we must realize there is no station. No one place to arrive at once and for all. The true joy of life is in the trip. The joy is in the journey. The station, it's only a dream. It constantly outdistances us. And then his final paragraph, he said, so stop pacing the aisles and counting the miles. Instead, climb more mountains, go barefoot more often, swim more rivers, watch more sunsets, eat more ice cream. He said it, I didn't. It's there. That's why I love this guy. Eat more ice cream, laugh more, cry less. Life must be lived as we go along. And then he concludes with these words. He said, the station, it actually does exist, and it will come soon enough. Choose joy. Don't let your circumstances rob you of joy. Abraham Lincoln said, most people are about as happy as they make their minds up to be. The Apostle Paul said in chapter 4, verse 12, I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, and here it is. I waited for the end. Contentment occurs when we develop a spirit of gratitude, regardless of our circumstances. Contentment, choosing, being grateful, regardless of what gone on, will just fuel contentment in our lives, and that's the key. It's there. It's what Paul says in Philippians. Paul said in Philippians 4:4, rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Friends, this is truth. That's why sometimes I'll talk about something that's completely unrelated, and I'll just go off for a segment about being a grateful person. It's one of the most important values I believe in life. It's something that I want for my sons. I've tried to communicate to them, just be grateful for all the blessings of life. It will serve you so well. I want it for my grandkids. I want to be a grateful person. I want Lori to be grateful. I want all of us to be grateful. Why? Because gratitude chases away discontentment. It chases away depression. It chases away despair. Gratitude, it fuels hope. It fuels joy. It really does. It's attitude. I know this because I've been on both sides of this fence. So if you wanted to be content, develop a spirit of gratitude regardless of the circumstances. It's the ability to say, no matter what I have or don't have, I'll be content. No matter what I have to endure, I won't play the victim. No matter what I gain or lose, my health status or job situation, my memories from the past or fears for the future, I will choose joy. You may say, Scott, I can't do that. Yeah, you're right. You can't. I can't. The Apostle Paul couldn't. But Paul says, through Jesus, you can. In Ephesians 4 and 11 and 12, he talks about the secret of contentment in all circumstances. And then he gives the secret, which is in verse 13. He says, this is the secret. He said, I can do all things through Christ because he's the one who gives me the strength. He's the one who helps me to choose joy and contentment and gratitude that'll chase away discontentment, that'll chase away fear, that'll chase away worry, that'll chase it all away. I can do all things through Christ because he's the one who gives me the strength. Through Jesus, you won't have unrealistic expectations. Through Jesus, you won't make unwise comparisons. Through Jesus, you won't have unnoticed blessings. You'll recognize those, and through Jesus, you won't have uncontrolled, out of control ambitions. Jesus said in John 10:10, I have come that you may have your best year ever. I have come that you may have your best life ever. Gratitude is the pathway to contentment and your best year ever. The good news is, gratitude is just a choice. And your best year ever can happen for you, regardless of what happens this next year. It, in one sense, might be your worst year ever, but it can be your best year ever if you just choose gratitude. It will fuel contentment. Jesus said, I have come that you might have life in all of its fullness. Let's choose that. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the challenge of your word. I thank you for the Apostle Paul who prevailed in his life, learned the secret, passes it on to us. Father, I thank you that the secret to contentment is not possible. I thank you that it's not possible through just us, that it's only possible through Jesus, and that God, that we seek him, that we honor him, that we listen to him, we follow him for the rest of our days. And Father, I thank you that when we do, we really can have our best year ever. We pray this in his name. Amen.